Welcome to Bookish, and let's welcome our author today, Mary Nestor. Mary Nestor, how are you?
I am fabulous. How are you, Ebony?
I'm doing great.
Great.
Let's talk about your book. Say it now, say it right. Handle how to handle tough or tender conversations. That is so what is the word? Like needed now because
Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So why don't we just dive right into this?
Great. Great.
So
Yeah. Say it now. Say it right. There's so many people now, with all of the COVID and and just all of the turmoil that's going on in the world, in the workplace, people have so much to say. And there's a lot of reluctance. There always has been reluctance to be what they call confrontational. I'm going to say something that maybe the other person really doesn't want to hear. But now it's like on steroids because there's so many issues pressing and so much stress coming from all kinds of different places that if we don't learn how to calmly and rationally talk to each other and say what we have to say. I call it our it. I say it now, say it right. We all have an it somewhere.
mhm.
And it could be, maybe it's that you have been working remotely and you want to continue that, but your boss is telling you to come back to work. Now that's a stressful conversation that you have to have. But this is my it. My it is my truth. My truth is, if this is my situation, that I really like working remote. It works for me. It works for my children, my family. It's less stressful. I don't have to drive. And I have every right to say that. And
Mhm.
without any kind of fear, but there's a lot of fear attached to that because you don't really know what the other person is going to say. So this is what my book is all about. It gives you tips and tricks and scripts on how do I start that conversation? How do I feel comfortable going into it and really step back first of all and say, what are the risks and what are the rewards so that
Mhm.
I'm emotionally prepared
Yes.
to
Yeah.
to have that conversation.
Yeah, so let's start with some of those tips. So what solutions and tips does your book offer to help in these really intense, scary situations where you need to speak your truth and have the conversation?
Okay. Well, one of the things that's difficult is that you don't know how to start that conversation. A lot of times if you've got a situation and you don't talk about it, and say it's at work and it maybe with a coworker
Yeah.
and they're not doing their job, and every day you walk into work and you don't you don't say anything, but it's eating at you. So it piles up and it piles up and it piles up. So after a while, the person is going to give you one wrong look and you're going to blow up at them.
Right.
So what you need to do is you need to find a way to start the conversation. I give you a couple of tips there. You could say to that person, I have something that I need to share with you it's been on my mind. Do you mind if I share that with you? Now, you're putting it in a form of a question because you're not saying, I have got something to talk to you about. Because that's
Right.
what you'd like to say, the voice and the face and everything. But you really have to think about that. This is what I want to do. I do want to talk to you about something that's really bothering me. But you have to be respectful. This is what the book is about. It's about respectful communication because you want that other person to be open to hear you. So asking it in the form of a question, most people are going to say, oh, okay. Or if they don't, then you have to respect the answer too. They'll go, oh, I don't want to talk to you about anything today. Well, okay, well, let's talk about it maybe tomorrow. So that's one of the tips you can do. You could say, even if there's something that the other person, they're not going to want to hear. And I use this with my children all the time when they were growing up. I would say, I have something that I have to say to you, and I don't think you're going to like it, or you may not like it, but I need to say it. It's really important to me because it's been on my heart and on my mind. So
Yeah.
I don't mean to criticize, but this is something that I really need to say. And I hope that you would be open to hearing it.
And what's really interesting is even if they respond with no, I don't want to talk about it. It's been said, like it's been said that
Yes,
there's something that needs to be said. You know what I mean? So it's on their mind, and
exactly.
Right. And so now every time they see you at work, it's like, well, you either, yeah, am I going to face up and have the conversation? Or am I going to like duck and hide? Right. Which can
Exactly.
get very awkward. So, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And
Oh, go on.
no, I was going to say on the others, the flip side of that coin, as you're talking about the other person, is you.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, do I feel good about that. I
Right.
feel, I have my self-respect and my self-esteem has just gone up about 3 notches because I
Right.
did it. I did it. I said that. I said what I needed to say. Even if the other person wasn't receptive, I was respectful. I was good about it. I didn't blast somebody, but I feel less stress. It's out in the, like you say, it's out in the open.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you kind of, the ball's in the other court.
Right. Exactly.
So
Yeah.
exactly, yeah. So it's both ways. It
Mm-hmm.
really helps you a lot to take the pressure off yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So in your response to this question, I think you've kind of touched on what we're going to talk about next is like, how
Okay.
do you break the ice when you have to have an uncomfortable conversation or offered feedback to someone who may not want to hear what you have to say?
Want to hear about it? Yeah. Well, the book talks about 3 components to respectful communication. So one is timing. And so when you're thinking about, I'm going to have this conversation, think about what time, what is the best time to do it? Now, it's not always immediately. So say it now. It's not like,
Right. Yeah.
just jump right in there and say it. But you got to think about it. I had a situation with my boss when I was working, and it was a little thing. Maybe it was a little thing. To me, it was a big thing. He didn't have any chairs in his office. So you couldn't sit down. If you came in his office, you couldn't sit down and talk to him. And he did it on purpose because he didn't want people coming in and sitting down and wasting his time. He was an accountant. So he, just tell me the numbers and go away. So but it bothered me because I would have to come and stand there while he's sitting in his big comfy chair and I'm standing in front talking. So it really bothered me. And I thought, well, if I had said it immediately, I would have probably come off as whiny and complaining.
Right.
I say, well, you're sitting down and don't you think it'd be nice if you'd offered me a chair? That kind of stuff probably would have come out of my mouth eventually. Or I could have said something, but it would have come out with that little whiny voice tone.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I waited until I was a better opportunity. And he was in my office a couple of days later. So we were sitting, of course, he was on my turf. So we sat down and we were talking a lot about other things. And it was a very friendly conversation. And just before he left, he says, "Oh, Mary, is there anything else?"
Mm.
Well, there is something that's
Mm.
been weighing on my mind. And can I talk to you about it? Perfect.
Wow.
So when we think about timing, it doesn't have to be immediately, or it could be you just wait for the moment.
Mhm.
Or you can also say to somebody, and just the same thing is that, I have something that's really been weighing on my mind, something that's important to me. Could we talk? Could we get some time maybe in the next 2 days? And I would be specific to say, can we have about 30 minutes tomorrow or the next day?
Mhm.
Because, you want to, this is important to you. And you really have to respect yourself and
Mhm.
don't say, oh, maybe someday we could talk about it. Well,
Right.
they're not going to talk about it. And it's not going to seem that important to the other person either.
Right.
So you can do that. So the second one is to say it right. There's all kinds of ways to say it right. And that talks about body language and your voice tone. And it talks about the setting too. Where am I going to say this? You don't want to blurt things out in front of people. I
Right.
always said you're going to praise in public and you're going to correct in private. So think about that. And where are you going to have the most impact? How is it going to have the most impact? And what's going to be most comfortable for you? There's a lot of things about, sexual harassment and all those kinds of things. So sometimes you have, depending on what it is and and the book talks a lot about that, the slippery slope. You have to be careful what you have to say and where you're going to say it and who else is in the room. So
Mm.
there's a lot of things to saying it right. So all of those things go into it. And the last one is motive. Why? It's the why. Why do I have to say this? Why am I going to say it? Am I going to say it because you need to come down a few notches?
Uh-huh.
Or, you're really ticking me off today? Or is it because I really care about you and this is something that you need to hear? or that I think could really be of importance to you. I had a friend who gave a speech one time and she was giving a speech, and it was like a practice speech. And so afterwards, I went and talked to her. She was saying a lot of ums, and she was also talking very softly, especially at the end of a sentence, and you couldn't hear her very well. So at the end, I just went up to her, just she and she was very appreciative of that. Now, somebody else probably would have said, oh, did you hear that? They would tell everybody else, but they wouldn't say anything to her. And so there again, what's your motive? Is your motive to help someone do a better job, to fix a situation, maybe a problem that they are not even aware of? There are lots of people who have no idea of their little quirks or the things that they're doing that are offensive, or maybe they are really affecting them personally or professionally. And they just don't even know it. They don't have a clue. And the nicest thing you could do is let them know.
Wow, those are great tips. Yeah.
Yeah.
And in rhetoric, there's something called kairos, and that's like the right timing. So when you're trying to get a message across, you're trying to have the conversation and just have the other person hear you out. The timing is very important. It's just as important as the actual message. So that's great.
Yeah.
Now, Mary, what about that old saying, if you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all? So isn't it better just to focus on being positive and supportive instead of bringing up problems, or like your friend, her volume was descending at the end of the sentences?
Yeah. You can be nice. And my mother always said that, you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. And
Right.
what is being nice? Is being nice knowing something about another person and being silent? I had a situation, this really happened to me. I gave a speech one time. I was a new manager, and I gave a speech presentation to a bunch of senior managers. Great opportunity, with a piece of broccoli stuck in my tooth the whole time.
No.
Yes. So, and they were loving it. So I'm there and I'm doing my thing, and they're smiling at me and they're laughing and everything. I thought, wow, they really love this presentation. This is great. Afterwards, I went in the ladies' room and went and saw the broccoli. I was mortified. So I went over to my assistant and I said, oh, I can't believe it. She goes, I thought it would fall out. I said, you knew it was there? She said, I didn't, yeah, but I just thought it would come out, or I thought you would see it, or she didn't feel comfortable telling me. Now, somebody would say, well, that's crazy. Somebody should tell you that. But there's a lot of, you think about it, there's a lot of people who won't say anything to somebody, especially their boss, some little thing. And what is nicer? Nicer for her to say, Mary, before you go, you've got something stuck in your tooth over here. And that's being nice. That's really being nice. Or if you have someone that, and it's not always just pointing out somebody's, I don't want to say faults, something like that. What about, I was in human resources for many years in different organizations. And one thing that came across my desk all the time were performance reviews. And people hate doing performance reviews, and they don't really like getting them either. But the managers would come in and I had to look them over before they gave them to 5 stars, shooting stars all over the place. And I would give them back. I said, there's nobody that has 5 stars, and you are not doing that person any justice, or you're not being of any help to them if you don't give them something that they can improve on, some way that they can improve. And there's a lot of stellar performers out there who are very discouraged, and they feel very cheated when they have a performance review and there is nothing on there that they can work on. Because I know, if you're a realistic, that you're not absolutely perfect. And if you want to get ahead, there's many things that people can do, especially if you're a manager. You can open up new doors. You can find, not you're going to pick on something or make something up, but you're going to say, well, if you want to get to the next level, this is what you can look at. This is what you can do. Always give people something to strive for. Even with your children, we all like to, we all get a prize and we all get a ribbon, but sometimes not getting the ribbon or not winning all the time is a better lesson, and it's nicer because you're more realistic, you have a more realistic view. And learning to deal with some adversity is not a bad thing.
Right.
Even in business, I feel that, and I've seen it too many times, you'll have really, great people with great resumes, and they were top of their class, and they get into a work environment, it's totally different. And they don't know how to handle it because, hey, I was always the A student, I was always in all the clubs, and I got all the big, prizes. Well, it's different.
Yes.
And
yes.
so the nicest thing you can do is help someone, especially if you're in that kind of a position, is to help them be a great coach, be a great mentor. I had wonderful mentors because I said it wrong most of the time. I was a new manager. I didn't have a clue what I was doing, and people didn't like working for me. They didn't. And if my boss hadn't sat me down and said, Mary, people don't like working for you, that's exactly what she said. And it was a huge wake-up call to me, but we are still friends 30 years later.
Wow.
She's in my book because that's what's being nice.
Right.
That's the nicest thing you could do for somebody, because if you really care about them, you are going to take a risk, find your voice, and you're going to speak your truth. And it may not be, they may not have the same idea.
Right. Yeah.
But you know what? You said it, you had a good motive, it's the right time, and they can do with it, what they will. The chapter in my book talks about it. You could have the right timing, you can have the right setting and the right motive. The rest is up for grabs.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because you don't know how the other person is, but you can. The only thing you control is yourself.
Yeah. I was just going to say that,
Yeah.
that you have to just, mind the things that you can control and let go of the things that you cannot control. Right. Yeah.
Exactly. And if people don't agree with you, a great tip is to say, well, I see it differently.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And you're not saying you're wrong or you're stupid or anything. You're just saying, I see it differently. And you have the right to.
Right. And in class, because I'm a teacher, we say, I respectfully disagree.
Yes. There you go. Yeah.
Mary, are there some situations where you should just be silent? Or times where you should say nothing?
Yes, there are.
Okay.
There are times. Yes. If you're angry.
Uh-huh.
Nope. Don't say that. Especially don't get on a text or a message. You don't want to send anything out. Don't email when you're angry. And communication is all these things. It's not just speaking face to face. I think the best way, if you have a conversation like that you're going to, something tough would be face to face, or at least FaceTime or something, so you can see the other person. If you don't have an opportunity to see somebody personally or to interact that way, then I would say don't say anything. Yeah. Don't say something if you don't have all the information either. You may have heard a few things, but it may not be true. So I would say, I think I in the book, I'll say, unless you've got, photos or something, gossip. If it's just gossip, then keep silent. Don't say anything about it. The other thing is in the book, I talk about being silent is I have my son at the time I think he was 18, and he had really bad acne, and we went to the doctor and doctor's office, and he was sitting there on the exam table, and I'm standing there, and the doctor is in. He asked my son a question, and I answered it right away. I'm the mom. So he asked another question to my son, and I answered it right away. So 3 times this happened, and the doctor stopped and looked at me and said, Mrs. Nestor, I think your son can speak for himself. Now, that was a beautiful say it now, say it right, because he was, of course, in charge. He addressed me very nicely. He told me exactly what he thought, and he was right. So many times with children, as they grow up, the helicopter parents who are all, making sure that everybody's happy and everything works out perfectly. Well, that may not be the nicest thing to do. Is to let children experience and speak up for themselves. And the other is, let's see, I was just thinking of that. I guess my thought has gone away.
That's okay. It'll
But
come back in a
yeah,
second.
but the just letting other people experience and letting other people say things for themselves, even if you think it's going to come out wrong. You can helicopter people, especially, oh, I know, it's managers. Managers can be so micromanaging, and they'll give somebody a project and then they're right behind you every step of the way,
Right. Yeah.
sending you 15 emails. What about this? What about this? Or reminding you until you're just about your head is going to explode.
Yeah.
You need to let people do their thing, make some mistakes, and then you come in and you can help them to correct the mistakes and to learn from that. There's so much value in learning. And if you're always taking sure that everything is going to go perfectly, the other person is losing a lot of learning opportunity.
And speaking of managers, Mary, what's the most important message for leaders and managers handling tough conversations? Because a lot of them are scared.
They are. Yeah, they are. Yeah, they're afraid of all these people that are coming back to work and they're not happy. Yeah. The best thing to do is do it. And that sounds simple, but think about when you have a situation where only the manager or the leader can actually solve the problem. They're in a position to make something happen and they don't. What does it happen to the leader? If you are that person, you're losing respect. Your team is floundering. They don't know what to do. They're not going to be doing their best work either. Somebody has to take charge, and they're looking for somebody to have their back. And in bad situations or difficult situations, you have, as a leader and a manager, you have so much to lose because you are not taking on the responsibility for solving problems and getting people engaged, for leading your team. And even if the mistake, a lot of times managers are afraid to speak up and say, because they're afraid they're going to say the wrong thing. Well, you know what? Everybody makes mistakes. And I like to say, I don't make mistakes, I make choices.
I love that. That's great.
You make choices. And sometimes they work out and sometimes they don't. But you always learn. And your life is really just an accumulation of all the choices you've made up till this moment.
Right. Exactly.
And so, think about it. If you're a manager and leader and there's some situations, 800-pound gorilla in the room that you haven't dealt with, do it. You can even go in and say, there has been a situation here that we have not tackled, that I have not tackled. And I know that it's weighing on everyone. And I need your help. And what I need is, I need your understanding, because this is difficult for me. But what I would like to ask is for you all to support me and to help me to work through this situation. Just say what's in your heart. And again, we're going to speak your truth. If that's your truth, if that's how you truly feel, then nobody can fault you for that. They really can't. This is my truth. When I sign my books, I always sign them, find your voice, take a risk, and speak your truth. Because you need to do that. And the benefit for managers, for teams, for children, for relationships, if you can be open and honest and respectful with the right motives, so much goes unsaid. How many situations that we read in the news now are the result of a conversation that never happened.
Right. Yeah.
You could have a conversation first.
This, Mary, has been an enlightening conversation.
Oh, great.
I'm sure a lot of people will find this quite helpful because, yes, there's the book, buy the book.
There it is.
And you're going to tell us in a moment, we're going to ask you where we can find you. But I just want to say that I think that since all of the turmoil that this country has been through in the past, maybe 5-6 years, and even more intense with COVID, tough conversations, that's kind of been the crux of most of the conflict that we've seen is like
Yes.
just sitting down with someone that you probably don't feel like sitting down with and saying the things that you really want to say but you've been scared to say.
Yeah.
And when you're in a management position and it, as you said, it trickles down to
Oh,
your community, it just completely it starts to, what's the word, atrophy, like everything just falls apart.
yeah.
So thank you so much for this wonderful book. Tell us where we can find you.
Oh, okay. You can find me on my website. It's just my name, maryjnestor.com. So you'll find information on how to buy the book. You can buy it on it's on Amazon.com. It's also on Barnes and Noble and lots of other Amazon websites. It's also it's actually, if you're in Hilton Head, it's at the Barnes and Noble on the shelf, which is very exciting. It's in the library, so you can find it a lot of different places. If you would like a signed copy, you could drop me a note. My email is mary@maryjnestor.com, and I'd be happy to do that in exchange for a review. So I would love to have a review, but I'd love to have feedback on how people are telling me that just the thing that you were saying, Ebony, is that they're gaining their confidence on to actually they're feeling more comfortable talking about things. They're learning how to frame those conversations so that they get the results that they're looking for. And yeah.
Thank you so much for that,
You're
Mary.
welcome. Thank you so much for having me. I've just enjoyed it so much.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. And thank you for watching this episode of Bookish. And I look forward to seeing you next time when I have another fabulous guest. We're going to you will say goodbye to Mary. I'm going to talk to you for just a moment afterwards. But thank you so much, Mary.
Oh, thank you so much, Ebony. I really enjoyed it.
Okay.